Devils in Chainsaw Man are based off of humanity's fears, and as a human and part of that humanity, I'd like to believe, I think I speak for all of us when I say that humanity has a lot of fears. So there are so many possible devils in Chainsaw Man that it's really unthinkable. It's really almost an uncountable number. But in this video, we're going to do the work of cataloging each and every devil in Chainsaw Man. So you can refer to this video anytime you have a question about a particular devil, or if you want to remember something about a certain devil or remember their name, as Chainsaw Man gets ready to release in a couple weeks at the time of recording. So the first devil in Chainsaw Man is going to be the Tomato Devil. And this is, I know, a kind of goofy one to start on, but I wanted to give it the first spot because this is kind of the first devil that we see in this series. And it really kind of gives you an idea that, one, not only can anything that a person is afraid of or anything that people have a phobia of, maybe even weird or strange things, those things can be devils, but also a devil's design isn't always going to fit exactly what you think, right? The Tomato Devil is a big walking tomato, of course, so yeah, that kind of fits, but then it's covered with eyes and has a big giant sideways mouth, and there's numerous hands and body parts and limbs coming out of the bottom helping it walk around, and that is the nature of these creatures and monsters that humanity sort of just has to deal with because they are aware of the threat of devils. And we don't know a lot about what the Tomato Devil can do, but because there likely aren't that many people that are afraid of tomatoes, it's not exactly the strongest devil around, so it probably doesn't have that many abilities. One ability that we do know of, though, thanks to Denji, is that the Tomato Devil can come back from its seeds, so of course those seeds have to be burned to keep it in hell longer, because devils do go back to hell after they're destroyed in Chainsaw Man, but they do have ways of coming back that we'll talk about later in the video. The next one is much easier to understand why it would be a devil, and that is the Zombie Devil. Now, you know, zombies have been very, very large in pop culture lately, and that's because people do genuinely have a level of fear or at least interest in them, right? For everyone that's interested in a zombie and just thinks it's cool, I'm sure there are tons of other people who look at a zombie and they're just horrified and disgusted. And I'm sure if it wasn't for all the, goofy pop culture that we have surrounding them, they'd be much more scary, like they were back in the days when they first were adapted into media. But the Zombie Devil is kind of a floating corpse of a giant face on its torso, and it has a large brain sticking out of the neck hole, so kind of moving that face over and keeping the brain more or less in the same place that it would be without the head there. And there are organs that detach, or I guess hang from the body, and they latch onto people extending from the body. And yeah, it can control the people that it's connected to, but it's not only those people that it can control, right? Because anyone that the Zombie Devil is connected to then becomes a zombie, and those people can bite others and continue spreading and growing an army of zombies, which, is another thing that makes Chainsaw Man so scary, because concepts that people are afraid of then become real devils, and then you actually have to worry about actual zombies, right? An actual zombie outbreak, which makes it even scarier to have to think about or worry about. So that kind of feedback loops it into being even worse, I feel like, which is really the genius of this system of generating monsters for your world. Next up, we have the Bat Devil, which is one of the rare devils that we've seen actually incarnate 2 times in the series, because it's appeared both in part 1 of Chainsaw Man and part 2. That's right, folks, we're also going to be covering devils from part 2 in this video. But seeing as the Bat Devil did make its appearance early on in part 1 of Chainsaw Man, I did of course want to include it early on in the video, and the Bat Devil is exactly what you would picture, right? A giant, well, I guess not really. It's a giant bat, yeah, I'm sure you were picturing a giant kind of grotesque bat, but no, it's really just like a giant, very realistic looking bat with like a giant bat face, but it has a way bigger, more like, I guess what you would associate with a demon or a giant human-like body, right? So it has arms and legs and giant fists and claws and hands, and it's a really, really big, disgusting kind of being that then changes its appearance when it reincarnates in part 2 of Chainsaw Man to still being a giant bat, but now looking like a much more grotesque kind of version of the giant bat, with different color hands and legs, and also now sporting its wings. Now, beyond having an amazing sense of smell and senses like you assume a bat would, because they are partially blind, so they do listen out with their sonar, the Bat Devil is able to apparate bat wings, of course, because it is the Bat Devil, that he can use to fly around and take advantage of massive bursts of speed and air. And speaking of air, it can also force air out of its mouth in a very specific way to sort of form a cannon of sorts, right, that it can use, and we've seen that in the most recent trailer, to devastating effect. It shoots a giant blast of air out of the mouth, and it's incredibly dangerous, even being able to destroy entire buildings. Next up, we're going to talk about the Angel Devil, a character that we still haven't seen the design for or the voice actor for Chainsaw Man Season 1, but I do think we are going to see an appearance by Angel early on. And angels aren't something that you'd immediately think people would be afraid of, but I suppose anything long associated with death and mythology or anything like that is going to generate some fear from some people, and Angel actually is a pretty decently strong devil in Chainsaw Man with some rather interesting abilities, but a more interesting backstory, because most devils are antagonistic to humanity, whereas the Angel Devil is kind of just here working a 9 to 5, doing a job, not really holding much hostility towards your average day-to-day person. Now, in the series, the Angel Devil appears to us as a young man of long red hair who wears a suit, obviously as part of the Devil Hunter's outfit, but of course matching what you'd expect, you see a halo over Angel's head and some angel wings on his back. Alongside the angel wings, we have the Angel Devil's true ability, which allows him to absorb human lifespans. And with this ability, the Angel Devil can literally just touch you and take away the remainder of your lifespan just with that touch, right? You would just be gone. But where does that energy go? Where does that time go? Can it be used? And the answer is actually yes. You see, the Angel Devil can use the years of life that it's stockpiled to turn them into weapons through the halo on top of his head. This halo converts the years into swords, usually. That's kind of what we see mostly from Angel. And these swords have different effects, like being able to cut through anything you hit or take out anything you hit. So they are very legendary weapons in and of themselves. But with 1,000 years of energy, Angel can use a massive kind of spear. It's described as a spear, but it's really more like a lance of light. And that there is an incredibly powerful ability, even being able to stop Denji at his full power. Next up, we have the Cursed Devil, which is actually a really creepy one. The Cursed Devil kind of appears as floating body parts in the darkness. Imagine yourself in your house, completely pitch black at night. Across from you in your room, there's a floating pair of lips that speak to you, or a floating giant dark, long-nailed finger that knocks something off of your bookshelf or your nightstand before you see some sort of weird horned skull in the mirror. That's more or less what you can expect from the Cursed Devil. It's very strange and creepy, and when it fully appears, it appears as two kind of weird skulls with horns on them, an open rib cage, and strange bony hands that latch onto you and grab you while the mouths of the skulls bite down onto your shoulders, and it more or less holds you in place and completely rips you apart. And that is the curse that the Cursed Devil applies to you. But the way that it's applied is part of its ability. You see, the Cursed Devil takes advantage of nails, and users of the Cursed Devil's abilities have to insert a certain amount of nails into their opponents to have the curse take effect. And it's not literal nails like what you would find at a hardware store or what you would see Nobara using in Jujutsu Kaisen. It's more metaphorical, right? So if you have a sword, you could pierce someone and you could say a certain phrase, and those would count as nails, right, for the Cursed Devil. But this is a devil, or at least its powers, that we will be seeing a couple times over the course of the series, so keep your eye out for the Cursed Devil. But speaking of something creepy lurking within the darkness, there's also the Darkness Devil. And as you would imagine, this is a horrifying one, because of course, many people everywhere are afraid of the dark. And I'm sure that's not just the dark of, like, there not being any light in the vicinity. That also includes like the dark of space or the dark before and after life. Like, it gets very conceptual, but that is part of what I think makes this devil so horrifyingly scary. Because the Darkness Devil looks like a strange being, mostly made out of arms or long limbs, and it has 3 human faces on its torso going up the long arms that make up its body, and a weird sort of angular skull with 2 large tusks coming out of the eye holes with what looks like a cape or maybe just darkness itself, which would make sense, connecting the areas between the different body parts, making it a singular figure. Now, the Darkness Devil is what's known as one of the primal fears, right? This is one of the fears that is almost inescapable for humanity because it's one of the most basic fears that nearly almost everyone has at one point or another, making it one of the most powerful devils that there are. And of course, that also makes it one of the oldest devils, so again, that just makes it much more scarier because it's been here more or less as long as we've been. The Darkness Devil can of course control darkness, and I think it can also just become darkness, right? So you could be sitting in a nice warm park right in the middle of the day, and then the sun can just completely black out, and suddenly you're in a zone of pure black darkness with a strange being appearing in the distance, kind of standing back there, that can rush you down and literally dice you apart, knocking off all your arms and legs, and just take you out in a way that you never saw coming as you're enveloped in the dark. And the scary thing is, it doesn't even have to run at you from the darkness or like rush towards you. It can just look at you and make you start bleeding, or look at you and have bad things start happening, because this devil has a certain level of telekinesis that it can take advantage of, very similar to Makima or certain other devils that we're gonna have in this list. But probably the most interesting ability that we've seen the Darkness Devil do is create a sword of pure darkness that has little bells hanging from it that also have an ability of their own, because when you're sliced by the sword, the bells ring and that causes you to bleed excessively, pretty much ensuring that you stay in the darkness where the Darkness Devil wants you. And I think a fun fact about the Darkness Devil, I guess it's not really fun, is that when Denji was fighting the Darkness Devil, we saw like the Chainsaw Man spark against the face of the Darkness Devil, and there were people coming out of darkness all around Denji. So always assume when you're in darkness with the Darkness Devil that there are people crawling around all around you out of the darkness trying to get at you, which even just makes it so much more creepy. Taking advantage of another big fear that a lot of people have, Fujimoto gives us the Doll Devil, and yeah, fair enough. A lot of people are very scared of dolls. Dolls are pretty creepy. I know a lot of people have fun with dolls, but no, I don't like any of those shows or specials where they go to the island with 1,000 dolls that are all just left there or anything like that. I just think the blank stare that they have is extremely creepy, and yeah, those eyes definitely do follow you when the camera goes through the room. I'm just good. One time my mom actually tried to get one of those like real life baby dolls. I just think she was kind of sad they were all moving out and getting older. So she tried to get one of those like realistic dolls that mimics a baby, and I was like, no, absolutely not. Absolutely not. I don't care if I don't live there anymore. You're not going to get that, because then what if you start treating it like it's real and start like going mad? Like, no, I don't want to do it. That's horrifying. Let's not deal with that. But yes, dolls are extremely creepy, and if the Doll Devil's ability was real, it would be even creepier, right? Because the Doll Devil, very similarly to the Zombie Devil, has the ability to turn people into dolls that it can control, or the user of the Doll Devil's power can then control in that same situation. And the people that it turns into dolls, this is the scary part, can then just touch someone else. It's just touching them, not biting, slashing, just touching someone else turns them into a doll, adding to the army of doll people that you're gonna have to fight against, right? And they don't really change all that much in appearance. You'll see that they are now a doll human, right? Like you'll see their mouth joints are a little different, but mostly from a distance, you'll just notice a big blank stare on their eyes. And a lot of the dolls tend to sharpen one of their hands, which I believe are now plastic, right? You might notice that they're a plastic human being, to then turn that into a kind of plastic blade that they can use to pierce you when they're trying to hit you and turn you into a devil themselves. We don't know the exact appearance of the Doll Devil itself, but we do know what appearance it takes on when it controls someone's body, and it takes on the appearance of a large kind of humanoid figure with multiple big doll arms all around the side of its body and all around its shoulders in its arm sockets where arms should be, and its stomach and legs are entirely made of what seems to be big human-sized, half-cut, empty doll heads. So just imagine a bunch of doll heads if you had like a human-sized doll. Imagine if you took them, cut them in half, or cut them like near where the nose is and just stack them on top of each other. And that is what this thing's legs are, which is extremely disgusting. But again, I feel like it really fits because again, this is a piece of fiction set in the horror genre. Now, do you have commitment issues? Because this next devil might present a problem due to it being the Eternity Devil. And the Eternity Devil is kind of like a figure 8, if you turn it sideways, like the infinity symbol, covered in mouths and meat, and it's really disgusting, but its ability is even more frightening. Because the Eternity Devil can pretty much take you and horrify you for, well, eternity. And the way that it does this is taking advantage of its mouth. You see, inside of the Eternity Devil, or inside of its stomach, I suppose, is what I'd like to call the realm of eternity, where eternity has full control over how long time goes on and various other factors. And the scary thing is, you might not even know that you're in the Eternity Devil's stomach. You could be sitting home right now, and suddenly your house could become the Eternity Devil's stomach. It could decide to summon that entire house into its stomach. You wouldn't notice giant walls of flesh or anything outside of your house, because its stomach is actually a pocket dimension. And while it is its own sort of pocket dimension, it is limited in space, sort of like a Pac-Man game, right? So there's really no way for you to escape, while at the same time, the Eternity Devil can more or less completely stop time in that space for everything outside of you, which it still has to hunt down. And it can begin the process of hunting you down by creating a large avatar of spreading meat, right? And meat and mouths and hands and flesh that can then take you and drag you into its own physical manifestation of a mouth and take you out that way. And of course, being a devil, it can then take advantage of the horror of the situation that it's causing to grow even stronger and stronger, keeping you trapped even longer, or just making it more likely that you're never gonna get out. If you're a fan of Junji Ito, you'll recognize this next devil because it's the Fish Devil. And I mean, what can I say about this one other than it's clearly inspired by Junji Ito's work on Gyo. And Gyo is a strange work about fish that come out of the ocean with large, kind of disgusting insectoid-like legs or metallic legs. It's more so about giant sharks coming out of the water, walking on land with giant, disgusting insectoid legs and eating people. It's really, really scary, but there's something deeper going on below the surface, pun intended. And we really don't know what it can do beyond that because we saw it get taken out off screen by Aki in the series. But yeah, I'm glad that's one that got nipped in the bud, because anything inspired by Junji Ito's work, I mean, you definitely wouldn't want a guy like that around in the Chainsaw Man universe, because he's just creating devils at this point. He's just all the creative, horrifying things that guy comes up with. No, let's just stop that right away. The Fox Devil is a devil that Aki makes use of as part of his range of powers, and we've already seen that one in the Chainsaw Man trailers too. It takes on the appearance of a giant fox head, but that's probably just part of its body, you know? So it's probably a giant fox demon with multiple eyes and probably multiple mouths, knowing how things work in Chainsaw Man, that exist in hell within the Chainsaw Man universe. But Aki can summon parts of his body to manifest in the real world to take giant bites out of devils and take them down. The Future Devil is another devil we'll probably get around to seeing in this first season or two of Chainsaw Man, and it's a devil that, of course, represents everyone's fear of the future and what's coming next, because the future is a very unsure period of time. You don't know what could be coming in your future, but you know that you are one day going to experience great loss, and bad things along with good things are going to happen, so naturally it's understandable for people to be afraid of it. And the Future Devil kind of looks like a strange man with its arms extended outwards, fused into what looks like some sort of tree or some sort of wood that's grown through and around the Future Devil, even growing through its head, giving it what looks like two large antlers. And in the middle of its chest, you have a large kind of open eyeball cavity where there is an eye peering through the darkness, which is likely one of the eyes that peers into the future, because of course, the Future Devil has the ability to know the future. But for the Future Devil to read your future, you have to do something actually really creepy, which is stick your head inside of the hole on its chest for the eyeball in its chest to then kind of scan you and read your future. It's actually really disgusting. But if you take advantage of the Future Devil's powers, it doesn't just give you complete outright visions of the future, but it lets you see a couple seconds ahead into the future, very much like how Future Sight works in One Piece. What do you think of when you picture a ghost? I assure you it's not what you see when you see the Ghost Devil, because the Ghost Devil is a giant kind of figure. It's very, very large, and it, just like the Tomato Devil, has legs made out of arms, a bunch of different arms coming out of where the legs, I guess, would be. But its entire body beyond that is just a bunch of flowers, right? A bunch of flowers all over his body, surrounding his body. I don't know what color they're going to be in the anime, but on top of that giant mound of flowers, you also have a humanoid woman's face, right? Like a big kind of, not really the most creepiest face, just like a sunken kind of, it's probably like a ghostly woman's face, probably all white. And she has long, black, just unkept hair stringing down on top of the flowers as she looks over at you with sewn eyes and a sewn mouth, just being overall creepy. Now, since this devil has its eyes completely closed, it does the next best and I suppose scariest thing by only being able to sense you through your fear. So if you're afraid of it, or just kind of afraid of the general situation when you see it, it can sense you and appear next to you kind of horrifyingly and just take you out that way. But also the Ghost Devil not only has the ability to become intangible, meaning that it can't be touched just like you would expect from a ghost, but it can also become completely invisible, which just makes it all the much worse, right? Because don't tell me there's something floating around that's invisible that I can't touch or prevent from hurting me, that's going around with all sorts of flower petals and long stringy hair, just like appearing around. It's just, I don't like it. But beyond that, we don't really know much more about what the Ghost Devil can do because that seems to be it. After that, we have a quick honorable mention for the Grape Devil. And the Grape Devil just looks like a bunch of grapes. You know, the grapes you probably have sitting in your fridge or that you would get at the grocery mart that, you know, some people you see eating one at the grocery mart, they just grab a grape out of the bag. I don't know what that's all about, but I've seen a couple people doing that even before COVID. Like, don't just eat the grapes. Then when I buy the grapes, there's less grapes in the bag. But the Grape Devil is just a long string of grapes, but every grape is instead replaced with an eyeball and it has little kind of hands. It's a little creepy, but it doesn't really have any abilities as far as I know beyond that, and it was taken out pretty easily because I can't imagine there's a lot of people afraid of grapes. But you know what a lot of people are afraid of? Fire and brimstone. And of course that means next up is the Hell Devil, which is a devil that of course represents the fear of hell. And in a fictional series like Chainsaw Man, where for people devils are an actual day-to-day thing they have to deal with, you can imagine that they have a big fear about the place that they know the devils come from, and that in and of itself makes another devil which represents that place. Now, as terrifying and powerful as the Hell Devil apparently is, it's not the most powerful devil out there like you'd assume it probably would be. But if you saw it, you wouldn't immediately think that, right? You wouldn't look at it and think it's a pushover because it kind of looks like a giant skeletal minotaur, like it's a person with horse legs that has two giant muscular arms that have long appendages kind of coming out of them and a strange humanoid head that looks like it has a large helmet tucked over most of the face, so you can only see its mouth sticking out from below, which is wide open with giant teeth snarling out. And also, of course, the whole thing is on fire, right? It's in flames, which is what you would assume from the Hell Devil. And this devil, besides having, you know, very great physical strength like a lot of the devils on this list do, or speed, comparable to how much it's feared, which of course is a lot in this instance, its main ability is that it can bring people down to where it lives and keep them there, right? Which is the most horrifying thing, because if you're going to be dealing with a Hell Devil, you're like, all right, at least it's not up here, right? It's not where we are on Earth running amok. But if it's summoned to attack you, you're not safe from it because it can summon you and send you to where it stays and take care of you there. You know those stories about like back in the day in the mid-century or the medieval times, whenever that was, how they used to use leeches to heal people who were sick? I feel like just the stories about hearing that we used to do that has made so many people afraid of leeches that it makes sense that there is now a Leech Devil in the Chainsaw Man universe. And that of course is the next one on the list. And the Leech Devil is another one that we've seen in the Chainsaw Man trailers. It's that big kind of purple tentacle-y looking one, and that's not tentacles, folks. Those are leeches. It's a giant leech with like a weird kind of hairstyle covering a giant mouth on one of its heads. And the rest of the body is just kind of like a giant humanoid figure with extra legs and limbs, and all the limbs are made of leeches themselves. And it can create more of those to keep attacking to ultimately try to grab you with one of those arms or heads, and those heads can obviously eat you like a leech would. But the scary thing is, unlike a leech, the main head actually has big, giant, like humanoid teeth, right? Like chunky teeth. So it can eat you in a way unlike a leech, who usually don't like chomp through you. And if all of that wasn't bad enough, it also has, I just feel gross even saying this, a really strong tongue. Like its tongue is one of its weapons that it uses. It kind of uses it like a whip-lashing whip that can pierce through things. No, keep this thing away from me. Next up, we have another quick honorable mention with that of the Mold Devil, and that's a devil that we haven't really seen the appearance of, but I'm sure you could only imagine. I don't even want to put a bunch of mold on my screen here. We're just not going to do that. But the Mold Devil's ability is that it allows a person who contracts it to grow mold inside of a person's organs, right? You could see how that would be a very effective attack in a horror battle shonen like Chainsaw Man. And I suppose just to do these back to back, another honorable mention would be the Mantis Devil, which we only see very, very briefly. We don't even see the full thing. We just see like one of its arms, and it's probably just going to be a giant gross mantis, right? Let's just be honest. And we don't think it has any strange abilities or anything interesting like that. We've just seen it used more or less as a weapon with one of its arms cutting up power. Another devil we see really quickly is the Muscle Devil, which I suppose is from people's fear of muscles. What are you afraid of there? Gains? You're afraid of gains? But just like anyone afraid of muscles, this devil is a snake. And that's its appearance, right? It takes on the form of a large kind of weird muscle snake, but at times it could also appear to be kind of like a weird, almost like small, smooth Pokemon looking snake. I hope that's not on purpose, Fujimoto. But the Muscle Devil's ability is that it can control any muscle that it touches. So it can pretty much latch onto a person and completely control them. And if they touch someone else, or if the Muscle Devil touches them, it can then take control of all of their muscles and just bend their body in impossible ways and snap them into pieces with that ability. Have you ever heard the theory that octopi are aliens, right? That an octopus essentially isn't something from Earth or that evolved from Earth, and it's so different from everything else on Earth that it's more likely that some genetic material from an octopus or some sort of frozen specimen came here on a comet or a meteor that crashed into the water, and that's how they were introduced? I'm not entirely sure I believe that theory, but that and all the other things that octopi can do really do make them pretty interesting to me. But I also understand why people would be afraid of them, right? Because there's stuff like krakens and stuff, and I'm sure that gets mixed into the octopus category. Now, while we haven't seen the full appearance of the Octopus Devil, we have seen what it looks like when someone uses its abilities, and it surrounds them in a giant swirly mass of big, large tentacles. And of course, these manifested tentacles can be used to attack or to latch onto things or even climb things, but another great use for them is to pretty much wrap them around yourselves to make a pretty effective shield for yourself. And along with that, the Octopus Devil's contract gives the user the ability to spray ink out of their mouth or spray ink out of the tentacles to blind enemies in an attempt to make the battle go your way. Just like how the Angel Devil works for the Devil Hunters on Earth, we can also say the same thing for the Spider Devil, who's known as Princey. And Princey is a girl with long black hair and a zipper going down her face. But probably the first thing you'll notice about her is, as the embodiment of the Spider Devil, which is something that a lot of people are afraid of course, Princey has 8 long legs, right? They're long. And it's not 8 spider legs, it's just 8 individual long double jointed human legs. They might even be triple jointed. It's gross. And all the legs have sharp ends that could pierce right through one of the Doll Devil's dolls that we mentioned earlier in the video. Now, the Spider Devil probably has way more abilities than what we see it do in the series, because there's a lot of different kinds of spiders and there's a lot of different kind of ones to be afraid of. But one of the big spider-like abilities that we do see her use is kind of like a trapdoor spider move, right? Where she goes through the ground somehow. I think she goes straight through the ground, just kind of like a ghost. And then she pops up to drag in her enemies or attack them and destroy them anywhere that they are, right? Coming out from the ground, very much like a trapdoor spider. But beyond that, the Spider Devil seems like it has some sort of weird summoning ability, and it's not entirely clear whether that's one of the actual Spider Devil's abilities or something that it just can do because of its relationship to Makima, because Makima, any relationship with her is going to come with a lot of just weird stuff happening that you just kind of have to look at and say, oh, okay, I guess you can do that too, huh? But yeah, it seems like maybe she can summon people to her location by opening the zipper that is going through the middle of her body. This next one is an honorable mention, and that's going to be the Sea Cucumber Devil, and that's just a devil that kind of looks like Shigaraki right now in My Hero Academia. But it's kind of like what you would imagine if you just decided to draw like a creepy sea cucumber, right? Like you would draw a skull somewhere in there, and to kind of add a little extra splash of creepy, there is a random dark hole at the top and fingers protruding all from out the sides and on the bottom, kind of helping it drag along, much like how Shigaraki is right now in My Hero Academia. Again, that's very, I don't know, it's more creepy in My Hero, I feel like. I completely understand the fear of this next one because, again, it's something that I'm not going to go around anytime purposely in my life, and that is the Snake Devil, right? And snakes, I'm good. I'm avoiding it. I don't even want to be in the same vicinity as one. Sometimes I take trips to like the beach or something, and you'll see a person walking on the boardwalk with like a snake around their shoulders or on their head. My guy, what are you doing? So the Snake Devil doesn't gain any power from guys like that who just have absolutely no fear of snakes, but it still has a lot of power seemingly because there are a lot of people that are afraid of those things. And with its appearance, it looks like a giant fleshy snake, but keeping up the theme of Devils in Chainsaw Man being made up of like various things that we would recognize, like a bunch of arms or torsos. This snake is a giant, more worm-like being with a mouth made entirely of arms. And it's just, I mean, it's hard to really picture, but it's really, really gross when you see it. Now, this devil has an interesting ability that you wouldn't quite imagine it having, which allows it to pretty much eat another devil and then summon that devil later on as its own summon, fully healed, to fight on its side, right? So it pretty much takes your devil and turns it into a snake, more or less, right? Metaphorically, for the other side. Now, before we start getting into the craziest devils in Chainsaw Man, I wanted to give an honorable mention, not to an ad or anything like that. It's more devils, I promise you. I got you there, though. To a couple ones that we can quickly just kind of scroll past, like the Stone Devil, which looks like a little gargoyle with extra eyes that can allow its user to petrify targets, or the Claw, Knife, and Needle Devils, which all allow their users to pretty much have better proficiency with those things. So you could be a way better cook, you could be way better at sewing, or you could just be really good at digging in the ground with your nails. We don't know the appearance of any of those three devils, so that's why I just lumped them together. Now, these devils that we're going to talk about from this point on are some of the most important in the entire series, so heads up. It's about to get real. Now, first, we're going to start off with the 7 beings that are locked in an eternal battle with the Chainsaw Devil, and those are the Bomb Devil, Crossbow Devil, Flamethrower Devil, Katana Devil, Longsword Devil, Spear Devil, and the Whip Devil. Each of these devils represents one of those things, and we see some of those more than others throughout the course of the series, like the Bomb Devil and the Katana Devil having their own important arcs, but each of them does exactly more or less what you would expect having to do with their name, right? Like the Bomb Devil is a character known as Bomb Girl, or I guess her name is Reze, and she can transform her body into what pretty much is like a sexy waifu torpedo, and all of her punches and kicks come with explosive power, and she can also move with explosive speed. And then you have a character like the Katana Devil, who is held by a man named Katana Man. I know, it's kind of ridiculous, but our main character is a man named Chainsaw Man, so you know, you kind of get what you pay for with this series. But Katana Man is a man who has katanas coming out of his arms, coming out of his head, and he is extremely proficient with those katanas, allowing him to have a pretty amazing battle with Denji that I do hope we see in this season. But yeah, it kind of speaks for itself, right? And we don't know the original look of any of these devils because they did have a battle with the Chainsaw Devil before the beginning of the series, so we only know what their human hybrids look like, so I can show you a coloring of maybe that. But just understand that each of those 7 devils represents the weapon that they're attributed to. So the Bomb Devil is like a sexy bomb girl, Katana Man is a creepy guy in a large black jacket with katanas protruding through his arms and head, the Crossbow Devil's arms and head are covered in crossbows, the Flamethrower Devil obviously shoots out fire and is covered in flamethrowers. It's redundant to have to explain it about all of them, right? So you pretty much get the program here. We don't have to cover each 7 individual member of that class of demons because you understand who they are now. We can move forward to the 4 horsemen. Now, so far, we only know of 2 of the 4 horsemen devils from Chainsaw Man, and those are War, which we're going to talk about later in the video as we talk about Chainsaw Man Part 2, and Control, which we will talk about in a moment, but I am going to have to preface that with a mighty large spoiler warning, so let's wait until we get to that point. The other 2, though, are devils that we haven't actually seen yet in the series, and those are the Death and Hunger devils. And these are beings pretty much on the same level or higher than the Primal Fears. They're very, very strong devils, but again, we're gonna have to wait a second to really get into them because they're very spoilerific. These are things that really come at the end of Chainsaw Man, so really, if you've reached this point of the video, understand that from this point on, there are gonna be pretty heavy spoilers, if there haven't been already, for Chainsaw Man that you might want to wait for if you're not sure that you want to hear about it in this video. But pressing on for those who do want to hear about it, we have kind of what is the main antagonist in many ways of Chainsaw Man, or at least the way that Chainsaw Man has been presented to us, and that is, and I almost feel really weird just mentioning this, YouTube, please, I'm discussing a fictional series and covering different monsters in that series. I promise I'm not talking about anything real or harmful to anyone, trust me. It's a Japanese comic book, please. But the big bad devil that we're going to be talking about next is the Gun Devil, which has been summoned multiple times over the course of humanity in Chainsaw Man. Now, this devil has the ability to cause just untold amounts of damage, so much so that I can't even really describe it in this YouTube video. It's ridiculous, but just you'll see when it happens in the anime and you'll understand fully what happens when this devil gets summoned. But that's kind of the thing here, right? This is such a powerful devil, and it's apparently so big that there are only pieces of it available, and really there's only 20% at most held by different places. I believe the United States has 20% of it, the Soviet Union has 28% of it, China has some. Different countries are holding different parts of this devil in the world of Chainsaw Man for different reasons. But it's a really, really horrifyingly frightening one when you see what its abilities are in the series, and it does exactly what you would think, right? What you would expect it does, but just to such a horrifying level, right? That it's just like understandable that it's one of the devils that has to be dealt with the most. But the main devil that has to be dealt with the most, and now this is again, spoilers, so click off if you don't want to hear this, but that devil would be Makima herself, because Makima is the Control Devil. And this is something that we find out at the very end of the first part of the series. It takes a very, very long time to try to figure out what Makima's abilities are, like what she can specifically do, right? Because we see her do a lot of things, but it doesn't really all come together until you know exactly what her ability is. But once you know what her ability is, it's kind of just ridiculous. Now, the Control Devil takes the form of a red-headed woman with circular kind of patterns in her eyes, who doesn't have a big bunda in the anime, but definitely does in certain parts of the manga. Don't let them tell you that it's just fan art, it's just mostly fan art. But Makima herself represents the fear that people have of control, right? And you know that people are afraid of being controlled by others. Everyone likes to think that they have their own free will and they can make their own decisions. So having someone else steering the wheel and taking control of that is a kind of scary thing when you're not 100% trustworthy of that person, or think that you could do better on your own, or at least want that choice for yourself, right? Now, Makima as the Control Devil has a lot of abilities, but it pretty much all comes down to the ability to control things that she thinks are weaker than her. And as a person with a mighty high opinion of herself, this means a lot of people are affected by this ability. And by doing battle with someone who thinks they have a chance against her and proving them wrong, she can then add them to her army of people who she has control over. Now, once Makima uses her domination ability to take control of you, she can pretty much completely change your memories and your personality and heal you back to life, even if you were gone already, and then use your abilities as a devil or as a hybrid or whatever you are to her advantage. And because she looks at things like rats or birds as lower life forms that are inferior to her, she can then use those things to pretty much spy on people by controlling them and adding their vision or their hearing to her own. And she also has some sort of weird control over rats, where she can control rats, kind of lead them wherever she wants to, use them to move around, and even teleport to a body-shaped mass of rats at one point, which is just odd. But maybe she just has some sort of contract with the rat devil, right? Or maybe it's under her controller working towards her ends, because Makima is working towards a pretty noble goal to a certain extent, while albeit still being a rather crazy one. And beyond that, she has what seems to be abilities that are really only in the realm of higher level devils, right? Like she has that weird telekinesis ability, but she can take it even further by outright just completely crushing her opponents from long distance, like leaving them as just pools, or even firing invisible projectiles from her hands that are probably just invisible little force fields that can just wipe away large portions of a devil, or just send Chainsaw Man to space when she just does it a bunch of times over and over again, shooting him with her little weird invisible finger pointer. And finally, Makima has the power as the Control Devil to pretty much force devil contracts onto anyone that she chooses, more or less. Or at least anyone who already would be subjugated to the power of her ability already, because she sees them as inferior. This allows her to have a contract to pretty much let anything negative that happens to her be transferred instead to a random member of the Japanese population. And that's pretty much everything that Makima can do, so I guess the only other devil to really explain now besides the Chainsaw Man Part 2 devils is gonna have to be Pochita, which is the Chainsaw Devil. Now, Pochita looks like a little kind of dog with a chainsaw sticking out of its head and a chainsaw grip handle on the back of its head, and has a ripcord for a tail. It's really actually cute. I definitely kind of want a Pochita plushie, but its true appearance is that of a large, dark, almost like fleshy armored man with various arms, like I think 4 different arms, and spiky protrusions all over the head and body, pairing with a scarf made out of intestines that wraps around the Chainsaw Man's neck. And Pochita, otherwise known as the Chainsaw Devil, is known as the hero of hell. Because as you could imagine, there are weaker devils and there are stronger devils, and the stronger devils tend to pick on the weaker devils. So when that happens, the weaker devils call for the Chainsaw Devil's help, knowing that the Chainsaw Devil will arrive, taking out those stronger devils, but sadly also taking out the weaker devils as well. That's right, the Chainsaw Man just comes and destroys everything, leading to devils themselves being afraid of the Chainsaw Devil, which is actually the big difference, being that the Chainsaw Devil gets its power from all the devils being afraid of it, instead of the usual scenario where devils are powered by the fear of human beings. And it's not just the Chainsaw Devil's absolutely amazing power that makes it so frightening to these other devils in hell, it's also its most frightening ability. But the normal abilities of the Chainsaw Devil are as follows. It allows Denji to form different chainsaws from different areas of his body, so chainsaws can come out of his head, his legs, his arms. That's kind of the most basic part of it, right? But it then goes a step further and allows Denji to then control the chains on the chainsaw, or make chains from the chainsaw from different parts of his body, so he can use that kind of like a Ghost Rider chain to whip around or to grab onto things or latch onto things or enemies. And in the full Chainsaw Man form, it has such great regenerative capabilities that it's even able to regenerate from just a heart back into its full form as it crashes back down into Earth. So with its extreme speed and its capability to pretty much take down almost every other devil out there, with enough tenacity and enough hard work, I'm sure, the Chainsaw Man is scary. But what makes the Chainsaw Devil truly terrifying is this next bit, which again I'm warning does contain major spoilers for Chainsaw Man because this is something that we only learn at the very end. But the Chainsaw Devil has the ability to eat other devils and completely erase them from history. That's right, there's no record of them in the memories of people on Earth or in hell. The only devils that seemingly can remember small aspects of these devils, at least their names or in some cases maybe even their appearance, are the four horsemen devils, right? Like Makima or Yoru, which we're going to talk about in a moment here when we get to the Chainsaw Man 2 section. But this effectively means that the Chainsaw Devil can completely erase certain concepts from humanity or from reality. Meaning if people are afraid of, I don't know, spiders, the Chainsaw Devil can eat the Spider Devil and completely just get rid of spiders. Not just the fear of spiders, spiders just don't exist anymore at that point. And that has actually already happened numerous times in humanity's timeline in Chainsaw Man, meaning there are multiple things that have been completely erased that humanity has had to deal with or been afraid of in the past that just don't exist anymore, which is just one of the most mind-boggling things in the entire world of Chainsaw Man, because that's an ability that just shouldn't exist. And why does the Chainsaw Devil, out of all the devils possible, have that ability specifically? That's something that we're gonna have to find out in part 2 of Chainsaw Man, which recently did begin in its continuation. And speaking of part 2 of Chainsaw Man, we do have a couple new devils that have been mentioned in that series so far, like the Justice Devil. And the Justice Devil takes on a very, very strange appearance. It's a large kind of muscly mess with like 6 different human heads on top of itself and 2 very long muscular arms, which I guess represent the long arms of justice. And maybe the faces represent the different faces of the law. I really don't know what that's supposed to be. Maybe I'm just looking a little too deep into it. And besides the ability to get all big and kind of tough and weird looking, we don't know of any other abilities that the Justice Devil has outside of the ability to just straight up possess its user, right? And take over their body to do whatever evil thing it wants with its opponents. But after that, we have one of the main characters for Chainsaw Man Part 2, arguably the main character, and that is the War Devil, Yoru, whose devil currently takes on the form of a small bird with 2 big eyes. But immediately after forming a contract of our main character of part 2, Asa Mitaka, the War Devil starts to take on a very, very similar form to her, pretty much looking like a clone of her with scars across its face from when she was hurt in the first chapter. And being one of the 4 horsemen devils, you could imagine that the War Devil is extremely powerful, just like Makima, but it's actually in a weakened state right now, and it's trying to build its power back up to do battle with the Chainsaw Devil, which is of course our main character from part 1. And as a powerful devil, we don't know all of the abilities that the War Devil has just yet, probably, because I'm sure we're going to discover those as the series goes on. But for now, we know that the War Devil allows its user to pretty much touch anyone and turn them into a weapon. And the guiltier that they feel about turning that person into a weapon, the stronger that weapon is. So it's the kind of ability that makes you really want to make friends, but then you're going to turn your back on those friends and turn them into weapons, which really just sucks, right? It sucks knowing that you're that person's friend. At some point, they're going to turn their back on you and turn you into like a grenade or something crazy to then take down an extremely strong devil. I wouldn't want to be in her party. And so far, we've seen her turn a person's head into a sword or turn some intestines into a grenade, but we haven't seen her do anything crazy yet because it's been a little bit since she's shown off her powers. Now, honorable mention here, because I know we've already moved on to the main character, but there's also who could have been one of the main characters of the series, at least if you would have looked at some of the promotional art, and that was Bucky, right? Who was a little chicken devil. I believe it is the chicken devil, and it just took the form of a little headless chicken that kind of walked around and wore a bow tie and was a pet for a class. So it really wasn't all that terrifying or powerful, because it seems like people aren't really afraid of chickens. Wow, you know, who would have thought? But next up, we have the Cockroach Devil, which is really interesting because a lot of people I do think actually are afraid of cockroaches. And this thing is really, really, really big and not all that cockroach-like. I mean, it has a lot of different arms. It has the antennae on the head. It has an exoskeleton. So it has the things that I guess you would associate with a cockroach, but it does have that kind of large humanoid figure, right? Where it has legs, arms, hands, a skull, a head. So that's kind of what I think makes me separate it from thinking it looks just like a roach. But while I'm sure this devil has the ability probably to control roaches, or it can maybe split its body into individual different roaches and swarms and stuff like that, we really didn't get to see it do any of that because it took on its giant hulking devil form to fight the Chainsaw Man, which is Denji, and that really didn't go all that well for it, right? With it getting taken out pretty quickly. And the final devil that we have to talk about in this video is going to be the Typhoon Devil, which of course is a devil that represents humanity's fear of typhoons. And this devil appears as a giant kind of figure surrounded by a swarming kind of circling mass of intestines, or I don't know, it's some sort of flesh that circles around it. But I believe the way that the Typhoon Devil works is that it starts off as a kind of giant baby, right, when it reincarnates, and then eventually it ages into an old man with big bushy nose hairs, and that kind of signifies the typhoon growing, right, in stages. So it goes from like a level 1 to level 2, level 3, level 4, and as it gets stronger, it ages and gets bigger. And yeah, that's the main ability of the Typhoon Devil, right, that it's able to pretty much have a giant swirling mass of intestines go around it that can take out buildings and cars and anything that it gets next to. And that's it, folks. That is every devil in Chainsaw Man explained. We finally made it through the long list. We got them all. And yeah, let me know if I missed one in the comment section below. I'm sure you guys will. But this is Pineapple. I'll see you guys later. Check the channel for more Chainsaw Man content coming soon. Or you could also check out my My Hero Academia videos. I know those are two very different things, but hoping you guys can coexist here on the channel because I am planning on doing a lot of Chainsaw Man content. And whew, I can finally take a breather after all that. So I'll see you guys later. It's Pineapple. Please like the video if you enjoyed it or it kept you busy for a while. I'll see you later. Peace.